Richard's heart sank as he watched the guards drag his father from his home. Trudi was gone, his father was gone. All seemed pretty hopeless. And just then he heard some shouting outside. It was like music to his ears, because it was Trudi's voice he heard. And Trudi was letting her father have it pretty fierce. Oh my goodness. Trudi was like, "How dare you?" She said, "What in the world encouraged you to do that? Do not say that you were following God, because would God have wanted you to lie, covet, and steal? You already knew that you turned the list over, and then the idea of selling it to them. How dare you?" And she said, "From now on, Father, if you're going to attack Anabaptists, you probably should know I am an Anabaptist." Hugo Schwartz's face fell. No, don't say that. You don't know what you're saying. Do not worry about this. There's still a chance I could save you. Trudi, listen to me. I can protect you. In fact, I can protect the Jansen family if that's what you want. I can do it. I know people who know people. I can take care of you. Trudi looked at her father. She looked right into his eyes, and without breaking her stare, she almost spat the words out. "Father, you need to leave." And he turned around and walked away. Trudi came into the house. Her and Richard started talking about what in the world was going to happen next. When Otto came bounding down the stairs and he said, guys, come up. There's some fighting happening in the town square." And they ran up, looked out the window, and sure enough, there was a bit of a tussle happening out there. And just at that moment, somebody knocked on the front door. They ran back down the stairs and opened the door, and it was one of the Anabaptists. And he said, "Is Mrs. Jansen home?" And they went and got her, and he said, "Don't worry, everything is okay. Your husband is safe now." She said, "What do you mean he's safe now?" "We took him back from the guards. But we're hiding him for now. He'll be home in a few hours. But then you need to leave." That night they worked furiously, taking any money they could find and sewing it into their clothes, so that when they left, nobody would know they had money on them and they could use that money for the escape. About midnight, Thor Jansen came home. And he went to a secret hiding place and grabbed out a whole bag of money that they didn't even know about. And they sewed that into clothes. And when the sun rose, just at that moment when it peeked up over the city walls, they were ready to go. But they had one problem, you see. That list, that wasn't going to do them any good. They just needed to get out of there. They needed to give the list to someone who could keep track of it. The person was obvious. They needed to give it to the blacksmith. So Richard and Otto said, "We'll take care of this." And they headed out in that morning light to do it. Otto was going on ahead with the list. Richard was coming a little bit behind to make sure no one was following Otto, when all of a sudden Otto turned around and ran to him, thrust the list into his tunic and said, "Hugo Schwartz just saw me with the list." The two boys stood there side by side, and Hugo Schwartz came around the corner, and his jaw dropped almost to the point where it hit the pavement. And he said, "There are two of you?" They looked at each other and they grinned, because you see, they knew he didn't know which one had the list. And they knew whichever direction Richard ran, Otto would run the other way. And Hugo had a 50% chance of choosing the wrong one. Richard, with the list tucked into his tunic, he took off running. Hugo took off running the other direction. Unfortunately, Hugo Schwartz chose right. And he took off after Richard. And Richard, though, had lived in this city for enough time, he knew the alleys well. And he would dart down this cobblestone street and up into an alley and down another street. And he was weaving back and forth through the city. But his legs started getting tired. They felt like two tired sticks as he was running. He was out of breath. And that list, strangely enough, started feeling really heavy in his tunic. And Hugo was gaining on it, slowly but surely. And he knew if he kept this up, this would not end well. Finally, he rounded a corner, and right there was the blacksmith's shop. And he darted into it. And he shouted as he ran in, "Someone's following me, stop him." And the blacksmith, a surly man, stepped out of his shop. And Richard quickly was looking around. Where can I hide this list? He saw some boxes up top. No, those were too high to get to. He saw all kinds of things, and then in the corner, it caught his eye. There was a large cast iron kettle. And he lifted the lid and he slid the list in. Outside, the blacksmith, blocking the entire doorway, said, "I'm sorry, you can't go in there, it's too hot." Hugo Schwartz says, "Get out of my way, I'm going in." "Nope. I had to come out, it was too hot in there." "I'm going in, get out of my way." And finally, Hugo Schwartz grabbed the man, pushed him aside, and ran in. And just at that moment, Richard realized, you know what? This isn't the best place to put the list. And he quick reached into the kettle, grabbed the list, and flung it into the blacksmith's fire. It instantly turned black, and then the ashes disintegrated, and it went up in a little wisp of smoke. The list was gone. Oh, Hugo Schwartz was fuming. He was so angry. His entire face turned a crimson red, and he said, "How dare you?" And Richard walked past him, out of the blacksmith shop. The family gathered together in the home, and they decided they needed to get out of the city as fast as they could. And so they went to the Moritz gate. And as they arrived to the gate, something didn't seem quite right. Already the gates were closed and there were guards on the inside. And they said, "Excuse me, we'd like to leave." And the guards almost laughed in the way they looked at them, and they said, "Oh, would you? This sounds fantastic. Yes, that'll be no problem. You can leave easily. We have this gate here, and as soon as you go through that, we'll close it behind you, and then we'll open the outer gate, and you can go." Something didn't seem right. They said, "Is there something we should be aware of?" No. Don't worry. Angels are watching over this city." "Oh, really?" "Yes, would you like to see them?" the guard said. "Sure." And so they hoisted a ladder up on the city wall, and Hugo and Richard climbed up, and sure enough, Otto. Yes, there's lots of names. Good catch. Otto and Richard. Yeah, it was still a good catch for her. Okay, Otto and Richard climbed up, and they looked out over the city walls, and there, surrounding the city, were the Prince Bishop's soldiers. And there were more of them than they had ever seen in their life. There were tents set up and soldiers sitting around each of the tents. The soldiers were sharpening their weapons. And there they were, just waiting for the Anabaptists to leave. Slowly, Richard and Otto climbed down the ladder and looked at their father and mother and said, "I don't know what we're going to do." Well, there were other gates, but the problem was, no doubt, these soldiers were at every single gate. So the family regrouped, and they said, "How in the world are we going to get to Friesland if we can't get out of the city?" And Richard said, "Wait, what if we don't all go out together? If we leave one at a time, it'll be a lot easier to sneak past." That's That's a good idea, Richard, his father said. And so they came up with this plan. They were all going to sneak out one at a time, and then they were going to meet at the secret church in the woods. Just then, an old rickety farm cart slowly rolled up to the gate. And Richard said to the farmer, "Hey, can me and my cousin ride out with you?" The farmer looked them over wearily, eyeing them up and down, trying to think about exactly what they were up to. And he said, "How about this? I'll take one of you." So Richard climbed in. They piled the hay up on top of him. The hay, it didn't smell very good. It smelled a little bit like manure, a little bit like mold, but a lot like freedom. And there, in the rickety old cart, Richard lay quietly under the hay as it jolted forward to go to the first checkpoint.